And you are in the picture.
Oops. Okay, let's see if I can include you.
Every platform has a little bit of a different, what's the right word? Display.
Oh no, I don't want to be visible.
You don't want to be visible? Sit over there.
So the meeting is actually called for 6:30. That's right now. I'm just going to give another minute or two to people that are trying to log on.
Oh my God.
No.
All right, let's get started. So I'm Benjamin Bendet. I'm a co-chair of the Transportation Committee. And the first presentation we have for tonight is an update on Beverly Road Bridge State of Good Repair project. And that's Ms. Kidder from the DOT.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us. Always enjoy coming back to Board 14, one of the most knowledgeable groups about bridges in all 59 community boards. And it's been a while, I think, since we've gotten together. So yes, we're going to give you what we think is a very great update on progress on Beverly Road Bridge. Just want to take a minute to introduce the team that's here with me tonight. Margie Banker is with us from our Roadway Bridges team, and should be joining us any moment would be the director of that team, which is Sui Yang, in case she jumps in a little bit after we get started here. And also with us, of course, is Diana Soriano, the representative of our Brooklyn Borough Commissioner's Office. From the team that's presenting tonight on design is Greg Fisher, the lead engineer on the design with HDR, and Christine Mendenhall, also of HDR, and Alyssa Schneider, who is our community liaison for the design portion of the project. So what I'd like to do is take you through the presentation. And since this is a little bit of a bigger group, if people want to put questions in the chat, we'll jot them down while we're going through. And we can stay as long as you have time for us. I see our colleagues from DDC are also here tonight. So I guess that means there's another presentation. So any questions that you don't think we have time to cover, we will get back to you in writing. And I will also send you, Sean, the presentation tomorrow. Okay, so with that said, I think I'll turn it over to Greg Fisher from HDR and we'll start the presentation. I'm not sure, we haven't done WebEx in a while. I think we're ready to share. Here we go.
Indeed.
Everyone can hear me and see the presentation?
Yes, Greg, ready to go.
Excellent. All right. So thank you, Janine, and good evening, everyone. As Janine mentioned, I'm Greg Fisher, and I'm a consultant supporting New York City DOT through the design of the Beverly Road Bridge Rehabilitation Project. So a little bit on project location. I'm sure this is familiar to most of you, but the Beverly Road Bridge is in the Prospect Park South neighborhood in Brooklyn. The bridge is situated on Beverly Road between the intersections with Marlborough Road to the west of the bridge and East 16th Street to the east. And the bridge is indicated in the light blue circle in the aerial image you see on the right there. The structure is adjacent to the New York City Transit Beverly Road subway station head house. That's highlighted with the yellow shading in the image. And the bridge spans over the subway station, the platforms below, and as well as the subway tracks. So why this project is necessary. The existing Beverly Road Bridge was originally constructed in 1907, and it is showing its age. The support beams exhibit deterioration, and the paint system has failed. Deterioration of the structure is accelerating. It happens of structures of this vintage. And the existing bridge also imposes vertical clearance restrictions on the subway trains below the bridge. So our goal through this project is to rehabilitate the Beverly Road Bridge, to restore it to a state of good repair, and extend the service life of this city asset at least for another 75 years. And a little bit on the project scope. The bridge rehabilitation will include the following elements. We're going to replace the superstructure, which is the concrete and asphalt roadway system that cars drive on, and the supporting steel beams you see in the photos on the right. We will rehabilitate the substructure, which are the concrete walls that you see adjacent to the subway platforms that support the roadway up above and the span over the subway tracks. We're going to upgrade the bridge mounted utilities. There are a number of utilities. We'll talk about those in a few slides, and systems on the bridge. We're going to enhance the bridge aesthetics through reconstruction of the pedestrian fencing systems. We want to improve pedestrian safety through this area through replacement of the existing sidewalks, as well as upgrade of the pedestrian ramps. We're going to implement a work zone traffic control, which includes barriers, barrels, cones, signage, and the like, to safely move vehicles and pedestrians through the work zone throughout construction. And then we want to add some additional street lighting that we're going to touch on a little bit more in the next slide. So in conjunction with the New York City street lighting group, we did perform an analysis of the existing street lighting within the project limits. And this assessment identified a need for additional lighting at the bridge and the subway station head house. So the project scope does include the addition of mid-block streetlights at the southwest and northwest corners of the existing bridge. Those are indicated generally in the blue circles in the image. And the goal of this is to improve the lighting levels in this area at the bridge and at the subway entrance. Bishop Crook light lampposts are anticipated to be provided to match the existing streetlights along this portion of Beverly Road. There are a number of conditions of the project site that are influencing the work that we're doing. The project team is in consultation with New York City Transit to maintain subway station access and minimize disruption to subway operations throughout construction. And it's important to note the New York City Transit requirements and restrictions are driving a lot of what we're doing, the construction activities, as well as really the project duration, because of the track outages we will need that will be necessary to perform the work over their infrastructure. The existing bridge supports the roadway, which is comprised of travel lanes, parking lanes, sidewalks, as well as the adjacent station head house. And this project, one of the aims is to separate the New York City roadway portion and the New York City Transit subway portion of the structures. This will clarify ownership and streamline maintenance responsibilities as the structure moves forward. There are existing driveways and alleyways immediately adjacent to the bridge, and the project will engage in independent conversations with these properties on potential accommodations to be made during construction. It's important to note the south sidewalk, and we're going to walk through some sections in a little bit to give you more clarity on that, that provides access to and from New York City Transit subway station. And we're going to walk through the staging in a few slides ahead to show how we're going to phase the work to maintain access to the subway station. We anticipate pruning of the existing mature tree to the northwest of the bridge in consultation with the Department of Parks and Recreation. This is necessary to provide the contractor access to the work zone and really facilitate crane operations as we lift portions of the existing bridge out and install additional or new members. Reconstruction of the Beverly Road Bridge will impose some local impacts during construction, and these include parking on Beverly Road and also Marlborough Road and East 16th Street. There will be some temporary limited impacts to existing parking during construction. And when we talk about the staging slides, we'll touch on that a little bit more. The parking on the side streets near the intersections will also be temporarily impacted during construction. And this is really to allow for vehicle turning movements, the large vehicles, the sanitation vehicles, FD&Y, when the roadway is reconfigured during construction and there are limitations on those movements. The contractor will have designated material and equipment storage areas that will be sized and situated to minimize impacts to the community. And parking of personal vehicles by contractor personnel will be strictly prohibited within the work zone. There are select construction activities, primarily comprising of the lifting operations with cranes, both to remove the existing bridge and put in the new bridge, that will require work during off-peak periods at night or on weekends. So touching on utilities. As I mentioned before, there are bridge-mounted utilities that will be replaced and relocated to facilitate the bridge rehabilitation efforts. There's an existing 12-inch DEP water main on the north sidewalk that we're going to replace in kind. There are a number of existing New York City Transit conduits that are part of the subway operations. They're supported on the north sidewalk as well as elsewhere on the structure. Those will be either relocated and or replaced. There is an existing Verizon telephone line embedded in the existing deck that will be replaced. We're going to relocate that to an area on the new superstructure that will improve maintenance access to this utility. Finally, there is an existing DEP sewer line. It passes below the bridge and below the subway tracks. It's pretty deep. And it is anticipated that this project will not impact the sewer, so we have no work planned for the sewer. New York City Transit Subway Beverly Road Q Line Station was added to the National Register in July of 2004. Important to note that the station, though, is not a city landmark, and the project will not impact the existing subway station. We'll be working in close proximity to it, but we're not going to make modifications to the subway head house. The project will include construction's means and method restrictions on the contractor that will limit vibrations of the project on these adjacent historic resources. Important to note also that the project limits are immediately adjacent to two historic historic districts. The Prospect Park South district to the northwest, which is indicated in the yellow shading in the image at the top right, and the recently designated Beverly Square West, that's to the southwest, that's illustrated in the green shading in the image to the top right. So a little bit on the existing section and plan of the bridge. So the existing bridge section is at the top. It's taken looking east or to the right on the plan image that you see at the bottom. This New York City Transit, the New York City Transit subway platforms and tracks are located below the bridge. The existing roadway cross section is comprised of the following. I'm going to progress from the north side of the bridge to the south side, or on this image that's left to right. We start with a 10-foot wide sidewalk on the north side, 7-foot wide parking lane along the north curb. We have two 13-foot wide shared travel lanes for vehicles and bikes, that one in the westbound direction, one in the eastbound direction, a 7-foot parking lane along the south curb, and then a 10-foot wide sidewalk on the south that, as I mentioned before, provides access to and from the Beverly Road subway station. Important to note, and kind of highlighted in the image on the right, there are existing through girders along both the north and south curb lines that extend above the roadway surface. They're currently painted black. You can see them just behind the pickup truck beyond the cone there. And the north girder is shown in the image on the right side of this. And we're going to show the south in the next slide. So this is what our proposed section is anticipated to look like. Same as with the existing section that is cut looking east or to the right on the plan view at the bottom. And our proposed roadway section is largely going to match the existing with the following modifications. The north through girder, you'll notice that was along the curb line, is now removed. This is going to provide improved access between the parking lane and the sidewalk on the north side of the bridge. The south through girder also supports the New York City Transit subway station that is to remain, and therefore that south through girder is going to have to remain. And you can see that there's an image on the right. The south through girder is shown also behind a white pickup truck this time. Another change, the north sidewalk includes a concrete parapet topped with a pedestrian fence that's in lieu of the existing corrugated sheets that are out there now. One last thing to note, our proposed bridge cross-section includes additional beams. This enables us to have a shallower cross-section than the existing, and this provides the improved clearance over the subway tracks that New York City Transit requires, and that improved clearance is for the full width of the subway. It improves their maintenance access, and should a train derail, enables them to lift it and put it back up onto the tracks. Our bridge's rehabilitation is going to progress in stages so that we can maintain traffic throughout the construction period. And we're going to walk through the phasing in a second on the subsequent slides, but we're going to maintain the following throughout construction: access to and from New York City Transit subway station. Both the eastbound and westbound traffic will be maintained throughout in every stage. Pedestrian movements will be maintained along Beverly Road. We will have some closures of sidewalks that we'll discuss in a minute. And as I discussed a little bit earlier, there will be temporary parking restrictions during construction, but we're going to limit that to the greatest extent possible. The project is going to require compliance with city regulations on noise and air monitoring throughout construction. And as I mentioned before, select construction activities such as crane operations will require work during off-peak periods at night and on weekends. There will be associated detours for that work, and you'll see that in a subsequent slide. Our first stage involves the removal and replacement of the northern third of the bridge. The closed portion of the structure is indicated by the red crosshatch up on the top. Traffic will be shifted to the south, and both the eastbound and westbound traffic will be maintained as indicated by the large green arrows in the image. There will be parking restrictions along Beverly between Marlborough and East 16th Street, obviously. And the north sidewalk will be temporarily closed during this stage, while the south sidewalk along the subway station remains fully open. In our second stage, we're going to remove and replace the center third of the roadway bridge. The closed portion of the bridge, as before, is indicated by the red crosshatch there in the image. Traffic will split to the north and south of the work zone, with both east and west traffic maintained as indicated by the green arrows. And then once again, parking will be restricted on Beverly between Marlborough and East 16th Street. And in this stage, both the north and south sidewalks will remain open. In our third stage, we're going to remove and replace the southern third of the roadway portion of the bridge. And as always, the closed portion of the bridge is indicated in the red crosshatch in the image. It kind of comes right up to the south curb where the through girder is. Traffic is shifted to the north, and both eastbound and westbound traffic will be maintained as indicated in the large green arrows. Parking restrictions continue along Beverly Road between Marlborough and East 16th Street, and both the north and south sidewalks remain open during this stage. Our last sidewalk involves reconstruction of all of the sidewalks. And this work is going to be phased and staged to maintain access to the subway and allow people to move safely through the work zone. So the first, we'll call it substage 4A, the sidewalk reconstruction on the north, it's indicated by the yellow crosshatch, will progress while the south sidewalk is fully open. And then once the north is fully reconstructed, we'll shift to the south side, and we're going to phase those in two phases, two substages, where the red crosshatching and the cyan crosshatching to maintain access to the subway station. There are two doors to get in there, and people will be able to move through the work zone on the north side, as well as enter the subway station on either the red area when we're working in the cyan area, or vice versa. So as I mentioned before, there are crane operations for the removal of the superstructure and construction of the new superstructure, and this will require short duration closures during which vehicles will be rerouted. Closures will be for a single work shift on the order of 10 to 12 hours and will be restricted to off-peak hours. We anticipate approximately 10 detour periods throughout the construction, one or two during each stage of the construction, and then some select other portions. The detours are going to use, you can see the image in the green on the right. They're going to use Church Avenue to the north and Cortelyou Road to the south. Flagmen will be provided to guide pedestrians through the work zone, so pedestrians don't have to detour, just vehicles. The project team is actively coordinating with agencies and third parties to secure design approval. This includes the Public Design Commission, the DOT Office of Construction Mitigation and Control, who will govern our staging and phasing to make sure traffic is maintained. New York City Transit Subway, obviously, and then the affected utilities we discussed before. The project team will coordinate with impacted agencies and elected officials. This includes DEP for water main work, parks for any pruning of street trees, the local precinct for NYPD, sanitation for garbage removal and snow removal during construction. And then we will continue to engage with the community through web and print media materials, virtual and in-person meetings, pop-up event within the neighborhood, and then comment log reporting. A little bit on schedule and budget. We are transitioning to final design for the bridge rehabilitation, producing the construction documents that the contractor will utilize for his work. That phase is currently in progress. We anticipate a duration of 2 to 3 years to complete the design and coordination effort. And then construction is anticipated to kick off in 2029 and will take approximately 4 years to complete. There are a number of stages, and we will be working over the subway, and we're going to have to do those construction activities that are impactful to subway operations at off-peak periods. So there might be lag between certain construction activities. The preliminary construction estimate is on the order of $50 million. We're going to further refine this as final design progresses and we get more clarity on scope. And the project is anticipated to be 100% city funded. So we thank you for your time, and we're available to address any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Greg. That was very informative and also very illustrative. So thank you very much for that. Let me just look to see if there are any raised hands.
There were 2 comments in the chat that I could respond to.
Sure, we can go through that.
I'm trying to get back to it. So
So
I'm a
there's
little.
one by Barry Katz from 642.
That's
but
about
just,
Newtown, about Newkirk.
yeah, but right before we go through that, I just encourage everybody to, if you have a question or you have something that you want to speak about regarding this issue, just that's what you should be doing. You should speak out. We're not really going to monitor the chat, but Miss Kidder is alert. She saw it, so we'll work with this.
Okay. However you want to run it, not a problem for us either way. So just a moment on Newkirk and Foster, although we're here tonight for Beverly Road. Just to, I guess I'll address anybody's concerns. The both bridges are absolutely safe. The story that came out in Gothamist was a little bit off point, if you will. We don't have any major issues with concrete falling off the bridge onto the tracks or anything akin to that. But it was cute on timing, I'll say, because we have just kicked off a design contract with another engineering firm that will move forward with a rehabilitation design for both of those bridges together in one contract. The board will be receiving correspondence from DOT very soon. It will be in our initial touch with the board. It's called our planning statement letter. You will receive that via email, and it'll indicate that the project is kicked off, and to inquire essentially if you are aware of any other agency plans in the immediate area, any immediate interest, concerns about the project. So I say we had our first meeting with the design team. To be truthful, I've forgotten the name of which design firm it is at this moment.
What is the nova journey?
I'm sorry, I don't, and so we will be sending out that correspondence very soon. So I know we don't want to focus on Newkirk and Foster, but the story in the paper was a little alarming, and I can understand the concern.
So maybe Jonian, you could, if you could just briefly talk about how DOT does like regular checkups to ensure integrity of the bridges. That's been part of previous presentations that you've done.
So just on background, every vehicular bridge in the city is inspected by engineering firms that are under contract to New York State DOT, and that's to have a true third-party inspection process. Our bridges are inspected every other year, and we receive the inspection reports from New York State DOT about twice a year, every year. In the meantime, bridges that we know have defects or conditions on them called flags, those bridges are monitored by our own staff in-house. Periodically, they'll go out again. Anytime that we receive a report from the state that there's a condition that causes concern, we have an obligation to respond to that based upon the type of condition they issue. And that can be anything from what's considered a safety flag, like a light bulb is out on a thing, or a catch basin is clogged, something they would call a safety flag, on up to what are called PIAs, which is a positive interim action, which means that we have 48 hours to take some action and report to the state. And there are various steps in between that we're required to respond to the state on what we do. But we do monitor bridges that we know have issues and concerns and go to them on a fairly regular basis. And I do owe you, which I will say, Sean, this is the first time, was it the first time we've done this virtually? Because I know in the past I've come out to the office. I owe you a copy of the last year's bridge inventory report. We're putting final touches now on this year's bridge inventory report, which will have all the reports on all 813 of our bridges with their ratings and the new rating system from the state. So were we in person, I'd be handing it to you. So I will get those to you.
I look forward to it. You make my inner nerd so happy. Thank you.
I forget the second question. I'm sorry, that was in the chat.
So it wasn't a question. I think Sean asked if we can add the Mayor's Office of Media and Film to the agency notification list.
Certainly.
It's there.
Let's get
Certainly.
a
We
buffer
do
that
have a
goes-
We do have a person who I say here in Bridges in our Maintenance Inspection and Operations Bureau who handles that, working with the Mayor's Office of Film. I still call it that, I'm sorry, to work with them almost full time because of the amount of commercials, movies, film shoots, still shoots that are done on our bridges. Jackie does that. Her name is Jackie Rosa. She does that almost full time with a few other responsibilities added in. And so everything that goes out eventually gets to them through her as well.
Got it. So I looked through the list. I don't see any raised hands. So
I believe I saw Lisa Derrick had a hand up at some point. Lisa, you still have a question?
Yes, just two questions. Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
I heard that you mentioned there would be a mid-block traffic light on Beverly Road. So will you be taking away the traffic lights on Marlboro and 16th Street, East 16th Street?
Greg, do you want to take that one?
Sure. We're going to put street lights. So by street lights, these are to
Traffic
illuminate.
lights, I'm sorry, traffic lights I'm referring to.
Yeah, we will have no impact on traffic signals, right? The intersections at Marlboro and East 16th Street with Beverly Road will remain as is. There are street lights on those signals in the existing condition, right, that light those intersections. But Beverly Road specifically at mid-block, and then I can go back to that slide, and the subway station are a distance away. And our lighting analysis showed that there are substandard lighting levels directly at the bridge. So we're proposing just to put street lights. They will not be traffic signals, red, yellow, green. They will just be street lights. And we're anticipating right now at the two locations indicated with the blue circles. We're still working through that based on utilities that are in the sidewalks, but that's our plan at this time.
Got it, I understand. I misunderstood that. And my second question, with regards to, I believe there's a wall there in front of it between the station and the street. Is that correct?
Greg, can you go back to that slide where you spoke about the
Or the
truss
bridge?
structure?
Yes, so the wall that you have there, can you just talk about how that will look? Is there any type of beautification that will be incorporated in that? What color will it be? Is there going to be any murals, anything like that on it?
So I'm going to show the one on the south side just because this picture is a little bit better in terms of illustrating it. I believe this is what you're talking about. This is actually it's called a through girder. It's a engineering geek term, but it's the support of the structure that supports the roadway. And the one on the north side that is shown in this image will be removed as part of our work. We're going to replace the entire roadway structure. On the south side, just in front of the subway station, this will remain. There are some defects that have to be addressed in terms of making repairs because of corrosion. It is in an unfortunate area where we dump or DOT puts salt on the roadway during the winter, and then it gets plowed up against this. So there is some corrosion of this member, but since it's a state of good repair, this will be totally blasted. And so that means all of the paint will be removed, it'll be repaired, and then it'll be fully repainted. Most likely in a color that matches what's out there now.
Does that address your concern?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I don't see any hands. So we'll close out this portion. Ms. Kidder, Mr. Fisher, to the extent that you're not going to be presenting anything else for the night, you're free to log off or stay. And we really appreciate you coming down and taking time to explain this project.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having us. Sean, I miss seeing you. And I just wanted to add that we will, having had this conversation tonight, we will be able to move forward with our initial submittal, our second submittal, I believe, to the Public Design Commission. And we will be able to note there that we've had this presentation. Sean, I'll send you the presentation tomorrow. And of course, if something comes up to anyone on the committee that didn't occur to them immediately, through Diana, or you can reach me directly. I know you know how to reach me.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
So,
Thank you very much.
so the next part of our meeting is a presentation on low traffic neighborhoods by Emily Chingay from Open Plans. Emily, are you on?
Hi, yes, I think my camera is glitching a little bit, so apologies for that. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to present. My name is Emily Chingay. I'm one of the organizers at Open Plans. We are a nonprofit here in the city advocating for safer streets and more public spaces in all neighborhoods. So really looking forward to talking to you all today about one of our exciting campaigns that we're currently advocating for, which is on low traffic neighborhoods. So just want to confirm that everyone can see my screen and my slide deck okay?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, well, thank you again for the opportunity to present. So I want to start off with this question, which is how many cars outside your window are stopping in your neighborhood? Maybe they're stopping to a pharmacy to drop off a parent or their kids off at school. And the spoiler for that is that it's much less than you think. And that is because unfortunately our neighborhood streets have become highways because of apps like Waze or Google Maps. Sometimes cars are now being redirected off of highways or larger corridors, and instead being encouraged to drive through those residential streets and cut through the neighborhood, even if they aren't planning on stopping at all. So this is increasing the congestion in the neighborhood, making it much difficult for the drivers within the community that actually need to get around. It's making it much harder for them to do so. So we found in a data for Progress poll that neighbors really know what they want to see in their communities. They know that traffic endangers children, traffic reduces the quality of life, neighborhood streets should have more outdoor spaces. There is a lack of green and public spaces throughout the community, and that New York City should really be prioritizing reducing the number of cars on the street to make it more accessible for everybody. So here are some Community Board 14 stats between 2015 and 2025. There have been over 7,000 total crashes, 29 fatalities, 28 of which were cyclists and pedestrians, and over almost 10,000 injuries. 51% of the driving within the community is cut through. So folks that are not stopping at all, they're not contributing to any businesses, anything like that. They're just simply using your community as a highway. And 53% of households do not own a car in the community, and 25 use their cars to get to work. So that brings us to our campaign on traffic neighborhoods, which is a neighborhood approach that manages the traffic, reduces the congestion, improves the quality of life for everybody, and really prioritizes the drivers within the community to be able to get to where they need to go. LTNs also promote active modes of travel, and it builds community with the opportunity for more public spaces within the neighborhood. So here are a few elements of treatments that create a low traffic neighborhood. So we have some opposing one-ways or traffic diverters, bus gates that could be physical infrastructure or camera enforced. We could have some school streets, modal filters, parklets, signage enforcement, all of that. These are all elements that you will find within a typical low traffic neighborhood. And this is what an existing grid might look like here in New York City. And with minimal treatments, we see that the traffic patterns have changed a bit. There's not much that's changing within the community. It's really just some paint and that through traffic is now being redirected. So those are the big differences here. And there's also School Plaza that connects the park to the school, making it much safer for students. And then with a full scale, low traffic neighborhood, this is kind of what it would look like if it was fully built out. We have, again, those diverters, the plaza, some shared streets, more opportunities for street trees, bike parking even, and we'll do a deeper dive into what some of these elements look like in a few slides, but here is what that traffic pattern looks like now within an LTN. So basically what this redesign is doing is encouraging the longer journeys to stay on those boundary roads or those larger corridors, and the folks that need to get through the residential streets are still able to do so. They're just kind of encouraged to get in, go where they need to go, and then kind of go back out onto those larger boundary roads. So the goal is to prioritize the needs and the safety of the local residents within this LTN. And again, traffic is, folks are able to get to where they need to go. And same with bikes and pedestrians, their access is fully maintained, and it remains the same. So a closer look at some of these elements, this is what a diagonal diverter could look like. So it's just some paint, some flex posts, we could add some greenery, some rain gardens even. We also could add plaza blocks around schools. This is really popular here in New York City with the School Streets program. Some schools are looking for more permanent infrastructure. Maybe they've been participating as a school street in the past and might want to build it out. This is a great way to incorporate that into a low traffic neighborhood. We also have shared streets, which are basically chicanes that allow for cars to go, they're encouraged to go slower, and it allows for cyclists and drivers to share the road without necessarily needing that separate infrastructure within a residential street. Obviously, still encouraging that built out infrastructure on those larger corridors and boundary roads to make it safer for everybody. But this approach is becoming popular worldwide. We've seen it happen in many different ways in the UK, in Colombia, in Spain, in Oregon. We've seen a few elements here in New York City, not a full-scale low-traffic neighborhood, but we have seen bike boulevards and the open streets program, for example. So when designing a low-traffic neighborhood, basically the through routes are redirected from the residential streets, but all access to homes is maintained so drivers can still get right to where they need to go within the neighborhood. And then all deliveries and emergency vehicles still have access throughout the LTN. And then if this is done correctly, it ensures that those longer journeys stay on those boundary roads and those residential streets are much more calm. And it makes it much safer for everybody. And then some of that extra public space can go back to the community in maybe it's street seating, maybe it's bike parking, maybe it's small parks and plazas, lots of different opportunities to expand an LTN. So a few benefits for the neighborhood: that through driving is redirected, it makes our streets safer. There is some statistics and data that show that traffic on the boundary roads stays relatively the same. It might even go down in some areas just because folks might be choosing to use a different form of transportation. So there's less cars on the road overall and less demand to drive around. And then we also have seen that air quality is improved, and then it also encourages active travel. Maybe folks who might have driven to get to one part of the neighborhood are now choosing to cycle or to walk just because it might be just that much more convenient and safer for them to do so. A few benefits for the city: they're self-enforcing, so you don't need to have barricades in place like the Open Streets program, and you don't need to have daily programming. It's kind of just some paint and some flex posts. Because the community doesn't have as many public and green spaces, this extra space can now go back to the neighborhood and public seating and playgrounds, etc. And then again, with the shared streets, cyclists and drivers can share the road. And LTNs are also relatively inexpensive to implement. So as I mentioned, sometimes it can really just be something as simple as paint. I'll go into a few more examples in a bit of ways that we can improve the LTN, but it is relatively inexpensive to do so. So a few points on what low traffic neighborhoods are not. They're not pedestrianization. Again, they're not like the Open Streets program. They don't prohibit vehicle access. They don't require removing any parking, and they do not reduce emergency response times. In some cities, they have seen that emergency response times are improved because there are less cars on the road overall. So it's much safer for them to get to where they need to go. So for New York City, we've already seen many of these elements. We've seen the Open Streets program, we've seen slow streets, bike boulevards. We have seen them add diverters, chicanes, contraflow bike lanes. So what a low traffic neighborhood does is, instead of adding these projects piece by piece throughout the community, it adds them all to feel that collective impact, to actually feel the benefits, instead of having just one intersection daylit and then one on the other side of the neighborhood. By having it all in one place, neighbors can really feel the difference and the impact. So we've been doing a lot of work talking about low traffic neighborhoods throughout the city with community groups, community boards, building that support, seeing how it might be relevant for their community. So to date, we have engaged this many boards throughout the boroughs. And then we've also supported some community boards with low traffic neighborhood resolutions, since there has been widespread support for having one, having a potential pilot. So we've also received some elected official support from Councilmember Juan, Caban, and Krishnan. So I'd love to open it all up to you to see how your neighborhood can maybe benefit from a low traffic neighborhood, or if there are any specific schools or roads that you feel are already really unsafe that could benefit from some sort of traffic calming treatment. Because our goal here really is just to see what what issues the community is facing when it comes to traffic and congestion, and see if maybe this might be relevant. So thank you all so much again. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, but I can pull up any slides as needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emily. I actually have a few questions of my own, so we'll start it up, but I don't see any hands raised. In the meantime, just a reminder for everybody, if you want to ask a question, please raise your hand and we'll get to you.
Denise has a hand up.
Oh, I don't see it on my screen. I just saw that
I
she
do.
waits.
You could also
Um,
go to the participants list and you might be able to find hands more easily in that. Otherwise, I can be texting you as they go up.
No, I see. Liz, Jeffrey, Thomas. Okay, so I see it on the participants. Liz will go right
Cool.
after me because I saw her hand first. Emily, just there are a few things that you kind of you looked at in the beginning. One of the things is you started off, there was a poll from Data for Progress. You also cited, I think in the third slide, you cited some numbers. If we can go to the third slide for a second.
Sure.
Thanks.
Alrighty, let's see. Was it after the Data for Progress, this one?
Wait, go one more. Sorry. Yeah, that one. I'm sorry. Yep. So you put out a lot of numbers.
So
I'm just trying to understand what is the source for these numbers?
Yeah. So for the first bullet point, those numbers are from CrashMapper, that's CrashMapper data. And then for the bottom 3 bullet points, that is data that we get from Replica, which is a source of data that we pay for to get a full view of New York City's traffic patterns.
Got it. And you mentioned earlier that it doesn't typically affect parking, but from at least some of the drawings that you've produced, I see that there is shared spaces where sometimes you want to put street seating on the sidewalk or on the roads, or you want to put different things on the road. So I'm just trying to understand how that kind of works together.
Yeah. So really, it depends on what the community wants for a low traffic neighborhood. It could be one with very minimal treatment that just changes the traffic patterns. And then it could also be a full scale one that is fully redesigned where there are opportunities for street seating and bike parking. But those elements don't need to be included for a low traffic neighborhood to be effective.
Okay, understood. So there are different types of low traffic neighborhoods, and they can fit the needs of the people around. But it's not
Right.
necessarily 100% accurate to say that it kind of always removes parking. I just want to make sure that we're on the same page here.
It doesn't have to remove any parking at all if it's just
Okay.
adding diverters. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Liz, you're up.
Hey, first I have just a really, really quick question. I think you had said that it doesn't reduce emergency response times, but do you mean that it doesn't increase it? Like they stay the same or get better?
Right. Yes. They stay the same or they get better.
Okay, cool. I think that's just in a backwards negative on the slide. I just wanted to triple check just so that it's like very clear on the record for us as we evaluate this. I just wanted to note, I think that, you know, a lot of these tools could be, I'm glad we're on this slide with the crashes right now because you'll know, like one thing that really stands out to me whenever I look at NYPD crash data, which is what's behind Crash Mapper, that some of it happens on our big scary roads. Like you can see Flatbush Avenue, you can see Coney Island Avenue, particularly around Church and Caton, which are notoriously bad intersections. But you can also see that some of this is kind of on, you know, intersections where people consider them to be more neighborhood streets, at least on one of them, like very residential streets. And just from having, you know, both been around this community board and hearing people speak at these meetings and also doing a lot of canvassing about safe streets for a really long time, one thing that I do consistently hear from people is that these streets look really, really safe the like neighborhood, smaller residential streets, but they, you know, struggle to get people to not just like speed through them, like, you know, on Dorchester before there were more stop signs added. Just like broadly, people feel really uncomfortable, you know, biking or walking on long stretch on some of the north souths because drivers go really, really fast across intersections there. So I just, you know, I think it could be a very interesting tool that we could use for this. And I'm also just, you know, I guess I'm also just kind of curious, like, what, like, I guess how, you know, if there's a way that people think about how neighborhoods are looked at. Because one thing that has always been a struggle for CB14 is like we don't have any very wide east-west corridors places. So it's like not necessarily clear like what a boundary might be for, you know, where a low traffic neighborhood should be studied. Like in general, does it work better when they look over a bigger stretch? That's kind of if there's not, you know, clear boundaries. Like I guess my question is like, you know, is it good to identify large boundary roads typically to then like narrow in on what kind of treatment should be done in there, or is it better to like start with a smaller piece and work outwards from it? Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's a great question. I would say one big first step would be identifying what those boundary roads might be within the community board. And then from there, maybe starting with areas that have schools or that have parks nearby, or that might just be more unsafe than other parts of the neighborhood might be a great place to look at. But what we've seen with low traffic neighborhoods is that they kind of vary in size, but they're always kind of a pocket within the community board. It's never the entire board or the entire council district itself. It's a small part of it. And then from there, they can build out more low traffic neighborhoods around there.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Jeffrey Thomas.
Hi, yes, thank you for this presentation. I'm mostly thinking about the impacts on the street where I live, which is right off of Coney Island Avenue. We had some changes from DOT on Coney Island Avenue, Cortellia, which are very good. I think most people on this committee know about this, the changes we've had. I'm still seeing traffic that's coming off, and I assume probably it's exactly what you said with people using Google Maps and Waze and being rerouted and coming onto these residential streets and going at quite high speeds. They're, you know, treating these as if, you know, they're still on Coney Island, or, you know, frankly, if they're still on the expressway. And I don't think it's people who live in the neighborhood, because I live in a building with a whole lot of drivers with a garage, and I think they understand that this is a residential neighborhood full of kids, full of you know, people walking around, and they are not the people I assume that are driving at these speeds. So I like this. I really like the you know, idea of saying we've got to keep traffic on these boundary roads and make sure that the residential roads continue to feel residential, especially as we continue to get other improvements, which are badly needed improvements from DOT, like the street safety project we discussed last month. This is, I think, something that I've heard from plenty of other folks I've talked to about, you know, how do you get around, uh, are you biking, et cetera. I see a lot of families biking to school with their kids. It's been taking off, and I think they also are saying, you know, the dangerous parts are there seems to be a lot of traffic that's going across the neighborhood, and it just happens to go in front of our school. So I don't know that I have much of a question here. I'm mostly thank you for this. I want to know if this is something you've been seeing traction on with the DOT, and if this is kind of a way of uh, rethinking, instead of saying, oh, we're going to treat this one intersection, which is great, and I'm glad Coney Island Cortellia was redesigned. We're going to say we're going to make sure that the neighborhoods around it do not get negatively affected, if this is something you've seen them be able to pick up and work with.
Yeah. Thank you for your question and the feedback. I would say that we have been hearing interest from Department of Transportation They have most recently, we presented to Manhattan Community Board 1, where there was also a DOT presentation on blue highways, and they were talking about cargo bikes. And then that conversation led to other improvements that they're hoping to make within the board. And so they did highlight low traffic neighborhoods as something that they would potentially look into to help mitigate all of the traffic, especially post congestion pricing in downtown Manhattan. So definitely hearing positive feedback from DOT, and our team is also regularly in contact with them, giving them briefings and showing kind of the support that we're hearing from across the city.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we have Matt.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. It was really interesting, and it does feel like we live in a neighborhood that has lots of really beautiful, quiet residential streets that occasionally somebody just goes speeding right down it. And I feel like near me, I see that most often on like Albemarle Road seems to be a popular place to be like, oh, you can avoid a couple of stoplights on Church Avenue if you don't really care too much about how fast you go through the stop signs and whether you wait for pedestrians there. And most of the time I'm there, it's really beautiful, and a few other times it's kind of scary when some of those drivers come through. So seeing some of these interventions would be really nice. And also, I like the point about mid-block parks being an option for some of these things, because I know that we have some parts of our district have some of the least park access in the city. So I was curious if you knew more about how, I think you showed a photo of one that's in Crown Heights somewhere. I wonder if you had any more information on like how that ended up happening and what kind of similar things could look like here.
Yeah, I'm not sure which slide that might be, but we've seen DOT has in their toolkit different interventions and elements that they can add that might be street seating or might just be a little parklet. And we've seen this we've seen this around open streets and whatnot. So I definitely want to leave it up to them to be the experts to see what might be the best fit for some residential streets that might be more narrow or less. But I definitely know that there is some opportunities to add that, or even just additional rain gardens and green permeable spaces, I think would be super helpful in all parts of the community. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks.
All right, next we have Nina Savier and then Musa Asum.
Hi, thank you very much for this presentation. I've been following some of these kinds of traffic calming measures that have been implemented in a variety of places, including places outside the United States. And I've been actively involved with street safety issues for quite a few years now. But I'm going to play kind of, I guess, devil's advocate in a way. I mean, given that we can't get New Yorkers to stop for red lights, and we can't get them to keep their driver's side wheels out of bike lanes or their passenger side, depending on which side the bike lane is. Um, and knowing that I live on or at the intersection of a street that has zero traffic regulation, and whatever it is, 4 blocks is kind of a mini super speedway. I guess I just find it hard to believe that some paint and a couple of little posts are going to do much of anything, because what I see is that these posts just get ripped out and people just go wherever they want to. So sorry to be such a cynic, but I guess I've been in the trenches with this for too many years. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that, or how you get these kinds of things to actually work.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And I completely agree that most times, flex posts are not the best solution in the long term. But we've seen around that DOT sometimes adds granite blocks or additional physical infrastructure. Maybe they'll add some planters around, and those are really helpful tools in physically protecting spaces. Sometimes they'll add boulders and whatnot to around bike lanes. And that really helps protect that space. Obviously, we're always going to see somebody trying to double park or somebody still bending the rules a bit here and there. But we do strongly believe that if there's physical infrastructure in place, it changes. It really discourages cars from being able to do anything but maybe hopefully follow the road rules. So that's one of our goals, to see more physical infrastructure throughout the city and not just the flex posts. But if we're looking for like an early iteration that is relatively inexpensive, that's one of the elements we'll probably see.
Okay, Musa soon.
Thanks. This map is interesting because I can see what I think actually is my street. I didn't actually realize there were that many crashes over that period. But I had two observations. One was that something like this seems optimal. I'm relatively new to the idea, so I may be making the wrong suggestion here. But something like this seems optimal to potentially try to pilot or roll out potentially in. I'm thinking certain parts of Ditmas Park, Prospect Park South, maybe even like Albemarle Road, because it has that green median, and then it's not. I don't think it's intended to be like a through road, but I think a bunch of people cut through there anyway. And there are so many people walking, and like kids are there on Halloween and all this other stuff. Um, and there are other parts, like I think more south in our district, that might be conducive to it as well in certain parts of Midwood. Obviously doing it all in like coordination with neighbors and any neighborhood associations and all that stuff, I think might be beneficial. One of the advantages I think you might also see from doing this, I'm thinking about just my experience on my street, is that East 18th Street ends up being like a through fare or whatever you guys were calling it, like for a lot of cars coming off Church and going south. And one of the maybe less serious issues that results of that is that there is always like congestion on the street itself. It's a pretty tight street. Um, and because of that, there's a ton of double parking, there ends up being just a ton of honking. And so everyone in my building who's street side just deals with like a crap ton of like car honking all the time during like the morning commutes and the afternoon commutes. And so if you somehow were able to offload most of that through traffic onto, let's say, Flatbush Ocean, Coney Island, and wherever else, then I guess you would reduce like the noise that comes in, which I know is like a frequent complaint of folks in my building. One thing I'll one of my questions is, what do we do? I thought when you were coming to present this, honestly, I thought this was going to be a presentation less on like the physical changes to the streetscape and more like I thought part of the system would be, how do you get like Waze and Google to just not send traffic through a street? But that didn't seem like any element um, of the concept. Is regardless of the actual like physical changes, is there some mechanism, or is this part of like what a low traffic neighborhood is ultimately to make sure that if someone is, let's say, taking an Uber back home or to somewhere, it doesn't drive through that neighborhood through the use of Google Maps. It just redirects them to the main thoroughfares.
Yeah. First, thank you so much for the feedback on those streets and parts of the neighborhood. I definitely took a note of that. But to answer your question about Waze and Google Maps, unfortunately, to my knowledge, I don't think that there's a way to convince those tech companies to stop rerouting cars. Maybe there's a way with the Department of Transportation to have some sort of conversation with them. But I think one of the best ways to do that would just be to make it really inconvenient for drivers to get to those places, or for drivers to be cutting through the neighborhood. So by redesigning the streets, that would be a solution that would, show Google Maps or these apps that it is inconvenient. It doesn't save those 2 minutes, so might as well just stay on those larger thoroughfares.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Musa. Alana is going to be up now, and then we'll have Sean.
Yeah. Hi, my name's Elena. Thank you for the presentation. It's really just exciting to see this and imagine the possibilities. I think I just want to echo like our desperate need throughout the district for better access to green space and like park space. combined with this issue that we have, especially, I mean, some of these streets, especially the north-south streets, some of them in certain parts of this are extremely wide. Like, I mean, I'm a able-bodied pedestrian, and I see people all the time, like, it taking an extended period of time to cross the street, and then if there's a driver, that driver, like, either behaving aggressively or being frustrated with pedestrians. And so I think this opportunity to like just like improve the safety, reduce these conflicts. Like I also was not aware that there were this many crashes and fatalities. And then in tandem with increasing some green space and some park space sounds like a win-win all around.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hey, Emily. Thanks. Emily, you said you made some mention of, getting DOT on board, and it sounds like you have some optimism for collaborations. But I think one way to look at priority locations for slow streets. I'm sorry, did I say it right? Would be to look at the data. Like CB14, we have data on how many requests we have of DOT for traffic calming in the district. And I would say by a big jump on a bar graph, we've got the West Midwood Neighborhood Association. I've got Avenue H from Ocean Parkway to Coney Island Avenue without a single controlled crossing on any block between them. We've been out on the street with the elected officials and DOT to do a walk around. We've requested daylighting and speed humps and so many other things, and probably 40 requests, and the only thing we got is one daylighting corner. So to the extent that these proposals could dovetail with data at the local level, I think is one way maybe to get DOT on board, because you've got the data of the requests backing up the idea and the organization that seems to have some energy behind it. And we'd be happy to work with you in that way as well. And I think other community boards do the same thing on their data tracking.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be really great. I think we've heard from community boards that sometimes they want just a flat traffic study analysis to see what the cut through traffic is like as an early step to getting some of that data to then show DOT that there is an opportunity to build an LTN within the neighborhood. So any data you have, any ways to collaborate is greatly appreciated.
So Britt Berg first, and then we'll hear from Barry Katz.
Hi, thanks, Benjamin. Yeah, speaking as just a CB14 resident first, I want to remark on Dorchester and Ditmas Avenues. I'm always shocked at how quickly people move through there. And also, I'm a pedestrian and I also drive in the neighborhood too. And the visibility as a driver on Dorchester and Ditmas always shocks me for how perilous it feels to cross those avenues in a car as well as on foot. So this type of intervention feels very interesting to me, just as a resident. And then wearing my hat as the liaison from the borough president's office. As folks may remember, I popped in and mentioned our partnership with Open Plans on putting on an event about LTNs a few months ago, and I know I traded some emails with Sean and Musa and Benjamin about potentially digging into that concept for CB14. I know there hasn't been a follow-up on that since then, but I just want to say that offer still stands, especially if we want to look into some of that data on unheeded requests from DOT on traffic calming. That is something that I could be interested in collaborating on in the future as well.
So I don't know if there's a response necessary from Emily. I mean, if there is, please let me know. But I'll just jump in very quickly and say, Brett, absolutely. We should follow up and continue that discussion. Barry Katz.
Yeah.
Sorry, Barry. Before you do that, Bert, do you want to ask a question?
I do have well.
Whoa, so hold on. So please mute yourself for a moment. Barry Katz was first, and then we'll go to you.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, my question became very short because Sean did a.
Well, I understand that, but there's okay. I'm sorry, I missed that. Okay, go on.
It'll be very short because Sean Campbell just basically said what I wanted to say, and did it probably far better than I can. Just that, and this has to do with the speeding and speed bumps and all of those. And I know that CB14 has been in the trenches trying to request this over and over. One thing, though, that I did learn this afternoon, because I've been pursuing other avenues, is I was speaking to someone named Rose Uskowski from Flatbush Safe Streets and also Transit Alternatives. And I think Emily, I think she knows who you are. And I because I'm attending a meeting with you. And she talked about the possibility of kids, and maybe hear your view on this, of what's called a raised crosswalk because by the way, I just received a rejection letter today from the Brooklyn Borough Commissioner on the subject. But anyway, are you familiar with that? And do you have any comments on that, how a raised crosswalk would accomplish some of the cutting down of the speeding issue? And again, I want to thank Sean. She basically said it far better than I can. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I would agree with you that raised crosswalks are really great elements to help reduce the traffic speeds. I will say, from what I've heard from various other community board meetings and conversations, is that they're very expensive to build out throughout the neighborhood, which is why sometimes maybe those projects might not be approved. But nonetheless, I do agree that they're really great additions to a low traffic neighborhood or just to a community in general. But because they're expensive, that might be why they're not always, or we don't always see them.
Thank you.
Bert, you're up.
Thank you. I'm in Midwood Park, Fisk Terrace area. Foster Avenue is an east-west street. There's a great difficulty because of the railroad cut and where it rises out of the ground between Foster and H, that it becomes very hard to move east-west traffic in Brooklyn. So what happens is certain streets get really loaded, and I guess to take the pressure off that, people come tearing down some very long residential blocks. I know that the neighborhood has tried for years to get speed bumps to no avail. I wonder if there's some policy about leaving some blocks as expressways so that they can take the pressure off streets like Ocean Avenue and Foster Avenue. In other words, this block is 2 to 3 East 18th. I'm thinking of south of Foster, is 2 to 3 times the length of a typical block, and cars reach quite a I would say remarkable speed, and nothing. We've tried for decades, and no response from speed bumps. So some sort of traffic calming would be really in order. And I suspect it's true for much of the neighborhood. The north-south streets are expressways, and the east-west traffic is very limited, the options for east-west movement. And so it creates kind of a desperation during morning and evening rush hours. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry if I might have missed the question.
The question is, can be done to calm traffic on exceedingly long residential streets where they're being set up by the the Q and B train and the railroad cut that creates very few opportunities for east-west traffic. And so the north-south streets become pressure relief valves from the few east-west streets, and kind of a crazy situation.
Gotcha. Yeah, I would say, I mean, we could use a number of the traffic calming elements that we could add to residential streets along those longer, wider roads. I definitely would want to see what the traffic engineers would have to say on that, as I'm not an expert, but I definitely think some of those elements that we already see within DOT's toolbox could be added on those thoroughfares. I hope that answers your question.
I thank you. I just don't know why speed bumps haven't been here for a decade already. And your ideas sound wonderful, but they sound like a larger scale project to remap the neighborhood. And that would really work for residential streets because most of the traffic here is through traffic. There's nothing commercial. And, you know, it's commuting.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I don't see any other hands. Actually, I do. I see one from Rugine. But before we go to Rugine, I'll ask. You know what? Actually, Rugine, go first.
Sure. Okay. Thanks, Musa. As we're envisioning what this could look like, this is maybe a little tongue in cheek, but I think it's applicable. When I think of low traffic neighborhoods, I think of Coney Island Avenue as it is now. It's a de facto low traffic neighborhood, not really by design, but how we're using it. Instead of nice planters and trees, we have car carcasses there for years at a time. We have car washes using an entire lane of traffic, thereby reducing speeds by limiting the amount of space that cars can use to get by. And it becomes, from a 2-lane road with 1 lane of parking, it often is a 1-lane road with 2 lanes of parking, or lately you sometimes have to cross the median and go temporarily on the other side when there's a tractor trailer that's there. I see it at 7:30 a.m. I see it again in the evening there all day. So it's possible. And what we're doing by allowing this major corridor to become impassable to vehicles and really hostile to pedestrians and bikes, including people who are trying to commute by bike to school, like my family, we're making it so that that's our low traffic neighborhood. That's Coney Island Avenue is our low traffic corridor, and our northwest roads of our residential streets become the one that people get routed onto through Waze and everything. So I absolutely applaud this effort, and I think it should go hand in hand with DOT and NYPD looking at Coney Island Avenue and making sure that it remains a avenue that can be used for transit, for pedestrians, and also for the housing that we need to build. We know Coney Island Avenue needs to be part of that solution, and it needs to be a lot more livable and passable for all of us to use. So thanks.
Thank you.
So I don't see any hands right now. I just want to fully understand. I asked a few questions in the beginning, but I just want to circle back a little bit. It sounds to me that the goal for most of these spaces would be to remove, let's say, in certain cases, 2-way lanes or 2 lanes going one way, to remove it to narrow it to 1 way. Does that make sense?
Not necessarily. That doesn't need to be the case for the roads. It's more so to make it so that traffic is being diverted so cars can't necessarily drive straight through a residential road. So let me see if I can pull up a picture.
Right. So I saw one of the slides basically.
And we will be posting this on our website too.
Right. And thanks, Sean. What I'm seeing here is basically you can't go straight for more than 1 block, and it forces you to turn. Does that make sense?
Right.
So it creates a kind of a way that even people that are local may have difficulty navigating through, but it's basically sacrifice to make sure that people from out of the area don't come in. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's correct. But I will say there are some numbers that show that because there are less cars on the road overall, their commute times do not change drastically or like at all sometimes.
Right, and that's also from Replica?
This data, I believe, is more publicly available, or it might be cited, maybe not on this slide deck, but in some other materials that we have that I can share.
Yeah, I would appreciate if you could share that data. Data is super important, especially for all of this. And one of the other questions, I mean, it seemed like it may have, you mentioned earlier that traffic around it might get, might even be reduced because, I don't know, algorithms from Waze or Google Maps might not make people go through that area. So even around that area, it'll be reduced. And I'm just trying to understand how. If you have, let's say, there's no clear understanding of if it's 2 blocks, if it's 3 square blocks, if it's 4 square blocks. People here are talking about Coney Island Avenue, Bedford, or Ocean Avenue, and those streets are already heavily impacted. If we're going to make it very difficult for locals even to drive 1 or 2 blocks, to go from, let's say, Avenue K to Avenue to I, right? They can't go straight. I struggle to see how there won't be more issues going even into the side streets just so people can avoid the difficulties that are already exacerbated on the bigger thoroughfares.
So the goal here is to reduce driving throughout the neighborhood overall. So folks that might have originally driven a few blocks to get to where they need to go might now choose to use alternative modes of transportation. That's not always going to be the case. But the goal here is to discourage that cut through traffic, get those drivers to kind of stay on those highways or those larger boundary roads. And then if they do need to make larger journeys throughout the neighborhood, they can also, again, stay on those boundary roads where those residential streets, their main purpose will be to kind of, if you need to pop in somewhere within that LTN, you're kind of going in and then coming out as needed. But the main goal here is to kind of prioritize the drivers that still need to be getting around, but then also encouraging different modes of transportation.
Got it. I appreciate your patience with these questions, and I guess I'll just have one quick follow up in terms of. It seems to me that there is. I think a lot of this will actually depend per neighborhood, like you were saying, and each neighborhood will put in their input. But even in your data, it shows that 51% are not from the neighborhood, but that obviously implies that 49 at least are. And those individuals are not 49 people, right? Those are a lot more people driving around with cars that are going to be severely impacted by just having to drive. If you used to have to drive 2 minutes to get 3 blocks, now it's going to take you at least 5 because everybody else in that little neighborhood has to do the same thing. So you're all making turns, you're all going around, and it's going to severely impact people. But I do look forward to these plans. In theory, they're a good idea. So thank you.
Thank you.
Liz, you're up.
Yeah, just to follow up quick on some of this, it does sound like it is possible that in certain locations, like my guess would be something where there's maybe more diversion like this might be around a place with lots of children walking, like a school or something. That trip might, be a little less direct if you're driving. But my understanding is that you would still be like, you're still talking about a 2-minute drive. You would spend more time trying to find parking on the other end already than the drive itself. And I guess just like trying to think about it, like we're trying to make it sounds like some of this is just to make streets safer for people who are walking, which already takes substantially more time and a lot more energy. But also, like, even if drives within the neighborhood got a little longer, they would be a lot less traffic. It seems like they'd be a lot less trafficked, or there'd be a lot less traffic for them, which is good overall for not like idling and greening and so forth, and would still be quicker than other modes and still very fast and very convenient, and hopefully should be faster because even if it was a very large version, 5 blocks without traffic versus 2 blocks with traffic could be very different. Am I understanding that right?
Correct. Yes.
All right, I'm not okay. If that was okay, understood. And I think we're just because of time, we're going to Mr. Jonas raise his hand. Oh, he removed it. Okay, it's back. So you'll have the last comment, and then we will turn to the next portion of the night.
Emily, hi. Thanks so much for your presentation. I just wanted to better understand the process. So for example, let's say this committee says, we loved your presentation, we're interested. CB14 said, we'd like to move forward with this. Then what happens? Who designs it? How is it actually implemented? And what happens next?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. So, right now, low traffic neighborhoods don't exist in New York City. We haven't seen any pilot for it yet, but our goal here is to build that support and provide more information and resources on what that looks like. So, if a community is interested in requesting a pilot or requesting a traffic study of the neighborhood, they can do so. We do have a template that we have been sharing around with community boards if they're interested in passing a resolution or a letter of support that would then go to the Department of Transportation and their elected officials to show that there is support for a low traffic neighborhood or a traffic redesign in their community. And so right now, our goal right now is to put some pressure and attention on DOT to show them that there is interest for this throughout the city. So that would be like the next step. And then from there, DOT would be the ones that would, if they decide to maybe pilot one at some point, they would be the ones to design it, to do the workshops and the engagement and so on.
Emily, thank you very much. This was very informative, awesome slides, and a lot of patience. There were a lot of comments and a lot of questions, and you fielded them admirably. So thank you very much. Have a great night. You can stay on if you feel like it, but otherwise, I'm going to pass this along to Musa soon, my co-chair, who will work with the next part of the night.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank you all so much. Have a great night.
Thank you. All right, take care. All right, next we're going to move on to the next presentation, item number 3 on our agenda. We're getting a presentation on a South Brooklyn pedestrian safety improvement from David E. Nickel and Tirso Tavares. Are the presenters available?
Emily, can you stop sharing your screen?
Let me check the attendance list. Are they here? David Nickel is here.
David, we're not able to hear you.
And is Tirso here? I don't know if I'm pronouncing Tirso's name correctly. Or is David going to be the primary presenter?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I had to change microphones.
Okay.
Except for my VPN at work, and I'm upstate. Okay, let's share a screen. Can you see the slide?
Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, good, great. Okay. I'm not real good with WebEx. It's kind of, yeah, I've never actually used it till just last week. So anyway, good evening. My name is David Nickel. I work for KS Engineers. I am the project manager and one of the two consultants, KS Engineers and Hayes and Sawyer, who are the joint venture doing the design work for the DDC and DOT. We're meeting with you guys. We're meeting with community boards throughout South Brooklyn, talking about pedestrian safety improvements for several locations in South Brooklyn. So tonight we're going to be talking about the location in your community boards are locations D and E, Campus Road, around Campus Road and around Hillel Plaza. These improvements that we'll be talking about are intended to enhance pedestrian safety, a topic of conversation for the evening, improve accessibility, calm traffic, another important conversation with you all, and create more durable and welcoming public spaces because there is an upgraded plaza as part of this project. Okay. So these two locations, okay. So we have, let me go back one slide. So we have 5 targeted areas in all of South Brooklyn. Yours are locations D and E. So out of the 5, we're working on 2 areas of your community. They were selected because of heavy pedestrian traffic. There are nearby schools and transit access. There are existing traffic and safety concerns. Location D, which is here at the bottom left, is adjacent to Brooklyn College, Midwood High School, and several other local schools. I think they may be elementary schools that generate significant pedestrian crossings and pedestrian use of the plaza area during the day. Location E is to the right, and location E is an active pedestrian space that you guys already use a lot. Currently functions as a temporary plaza. It's how it is the process by which plazas are designed and implemented. They become temporary first, and then later on, and through application, they become permanent. And we are planning to turn that into more of a durable, permanent public space. I don't know why I can't see anything down here. Okay. At location D, we are at Campus Road and East 27th Street and Amherst Fort Place and Nostrand Avenue H intersection. And in these views, kind of aerial views, a little above street level, these show the street improvement project work that was done about 10 years ago, where they came in, widened and improved ped ramps. They put in some temporary curb extensions and bump outs, and it's more like a test run of what they wanted to do in the future. So one of the things they're doing that was mentioned earlier, and that's over here at East 27th and Campus Road, that is actually going to plan to be a raised crosswalk. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Well, actually, it's a raised intersection. And so we're trying to slow vehicles down and increase pedestrian visibility, and that's one way to do it. Okay, so these are just more views of the project that was done in 16 with the additional striping, some flexible bollards, rerouting a little bit of traffic, aligning curbs. You'll see that the temporary striping aligns the curbs. So they tested it. They're now going to make this into a permanent design. This is the same. Okay, so this is the existing conditions from an aerial photograph. Hang on just a second. I've got to do one thing real quick, and I can't do it here. Problem is I can't see on my screen, which I don't think I'm seeing what you guys are seeing. Yeah. If you don't mind, this is easier for me to do because I can see where I am in the slides. So on this slide, there's the existing conditions at this location. So we have long pedestrian crossing distances. You've talked about that some this evening. We have turning conflicts with vehicles, speeding, and there are challenges to accessibility. Okay. So the proposed conditions at Campus Road. So this is what it reflects what's already been done on a temporary basis with striping, bollards, and other means. And what you can see is the key elements are the raised intersection at 27th Street and Campus Road. We've revised the curb extensions are permanently being constructed in hard curbs and hard sidewalks, new pedestrian ramps, new crosswalks. Relocated some catch basins. There'll be ADA compliant ramps. The purpose of the bump outs is to shorten the crossing distance. Bump outs also do slow down traffic going through the intersection. We upgrade the pavement markings. The raised intersection that was already discussed once as a desirable characteristic for you guys in the neighborhood, it definitely slows turning speeds. It increases the visibility of pedestrians, and it improves its accessibility for individuals with mobility challenges. So the design for this location is intended to better organize the vehicular movement and also, but maintain emergency service access. Okay, so the other part of location D is Nostrand Avenue at Avenue H. And this is focusing on simplifying and improving the geometry of the intersection. So we're looking at doing curb extensions, normalizing the intersection. So you see how that, you all know this. So this triangular piece right here that is cut out right here. We're going to normalize the intersection by building out and creating a more normal T intersection at that location. And then reduce the pedestrian crossings as a result, and then upgrade the ADA ramps. Okay, so this is the proposed condition plan that we made for this, and it reflects the permanent sidewalk, permanent curbs. This is the location with the extension of the largest of the bump outs, and then narrowing the crossing distance and making more of a normal normal intersection configuration. So then the other part of your all's project, the second location is location E, and that's the location around Hillel Place where you have your plaza. In 2016, there was a street improvement project where they came in and did some work, temporary striping, bollards, some step planters, things to test the idea and let you guys start using your plaza. There are currently, besides among the other issues that there are out there, is empty tree boxes. The plaza itself, of course, is an uneven surface because of the curb and the sidewalk versus the street bed. We have tables and chairs. You currently have those. And then the structure, the shade structure that has been there for several years has been kind of revamped. DOT and the bid are in the process of redesigning the structure, and that is a separate project from this one. It will be installed after, as I understand it, after this project is completed. The storage box, that's going to remain. It's going to be relocated in a less obtrusive location. The replacement of the bollards will be with full-on permanent bollards, and the light poles, the New York City street light poles, we're going to replace with pedestrian lights. So in the existing conditions, the yellow here, and here, these are all existing normal full height flatbush street poles, street lighting. You have a fire hydrant. The shade structure is already there. It's been there for several years, up and down with the seasons. The job box is there. The planters are already there. So it's not that we're adding a lot of new elements, but we're going to make it more usable, more pedestrian friendly, and also more functional for the multi uses that we see it is used for. So the proposed conditions, this is the schematic geometric design for the permanent plaza design. So you have a fully built out plaza, no more curbs, no more street bed and sidewalks. It'll all be one not uniform, but one uniform surface without the elevation differences. The pattern concrete paving to add interest and also help to define the space. We have new trees. We have trees replacing missing trees. The upgraded lighting in the center, these in the inside of the plaza are pedestrian lights. So they're not going to be the tall lights. They'll be the more pedestrian level flatbush lights. The same thing, you have movable seating. We'll have new bike racks, planters that serve as protective barriers at each end, as well as permanent bollards that planters allow, when they need to, can allow vehicles to go through the site. And most importantly, they give the FDNY access for fire safety and service if that something like that, horrible like that, happened. This curb at this end, Flatbush Avenue, is a mountable curb. So, and at the other end, we have larger pedestrian crossing areas. So to give you an idea what it looks like in a rendering, this is at ground level, which is kind of what you would see. So you can see the new trees. These are the pedestrian lights, the future shade structure, and tables and chairs. This is a new kiosk. This is a DOT standard kiosk. It'll be located down here near Flatbush. You have a lot of subsurface utilities here, and that was the best location for what this needs to be. It also keeps it away from the bulk of the open space available for your all's use. From a more aerial view, you get a little better picture of how it would function as a space. All of these tables and chairs can be moved. The fire hydrant is permanent, but the trees, they line the corridor. They don't block the businesses, but they leave plenty of space for usage for the parties or the performances or whatever else you want to do here. And the red lines you see here are representative of a reserved path for the fire truck, again, if it's needed. And this red square is the fire staging area if that became a need. So the materials and site furnishings, pretty all standard. We have a standard city bench, the bike racks, the step planters that will be at each end. In the middle part to be moved in case a vehicle needs to enter. The tree planting areas are edged in steel. And the concrete we were going to be using for these patterns, these curved patterns, is standards DOT unpigmented and the standard pigmented concrete. So maintenance should be easier than trying to custom repair or replace materials. The pipe bollards will be permanent. They'll be mounted in concrete, and we'll have city trash cans. These are tables and chairs similar to what you have now. The job box gets relocated right in here. There is a job box here, and there's also going to be an electrical service box. So this is still, don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but it'll be where your power supply comes in, your services exists, and it'll have a separate meter that you can use for your events. So the schedule for the two sites in Community Board 14, we anticipate to finish design in August of 27, start construction in 2028, and complete construction in 2030. And as the project advances, the DDC project team will continue to coordinate with your community board and the bid and all the involved parties. One of the things we're doing as part of this project is they're using what they call the ISI Envision Sustainability Framework, which is a lot of words. And it means that it's a framework that lets them envision or use resiliency and to use concepts to inform the design in a way that further enhances the well-being and mobility of the community. In other words, this particular program has 6 areas and 64 resilience indicators, and 5 categories: well-being, mobility, community development, and carbon reduction. Right now, there are levels that we try to reach: verified, silver, gold, and platinum. I think we would like to see it reach gold. We don't know, but we know we can reach silver. And so we're in the process of working with that group at DDC to find new ways or more ways or design changes or even some design configuration additions that might be able to be applied to your location to help improve the achievement on that scale. So community outreach, Tirso from DDC, I think, is going to talk about that. Yes. Maybe not. Did I lose you?
Tirso, we don't hear you.
Okay.
How about now?
There he is.
Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Sorry, I'll start again. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tirso Tavares. I am Assistant Director for Intergovernmental Affairs here at DDC. Briefly, I just want to go over the community outreach during construction. So stakeholders and community outreach activities will continue throughout the construction phase to alert of upcoming construction work, advisories, completion of milestones, activities, as well as community engagement events. So we'll be notifying the elected officials once construction starts, notifying the community boards, community members, notifying the bid, nearby residents of any construction activity. Next slide.
Okay.
So for this project, Community Construction Liaison, or CCL, will be assigned to this project, and their responsibilities are as follow. First point of contact: maintain on-site presence and communication, identify, resolve, and proactively address issues and inquiries, distribute advisories, weekly construction activity newsletter, and provide 72 and 24 confirm or cancellation advisories for work impacting via email and door-to-door, and attend any community board, district service cabinet meetings, or any community board meetings you'll like them to attend. So this person will be your point of contact for this project once it starts up, and they will introduce themselves and will come back to the board and provide any updates they would like. Next slide. So here are some samples you'll see the CCL use throughout the duration of during the construction. We have the project information cards. The CCL will hand out a sample of the advisories that will be posted via email and door-to-door. Weekly construction bulletins give you a week look ahead. And then the project update newsletter will give you status updates on the project if you are on the email blast. Next slide.
I think that's it.
Oh, okay. I guess for now, we have folks from our consultant team, DDC and DOT, on call to take any questions. So we'll.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate you all for presenting. All right. So if there are any questions or comments folks want to make, just raise your hand and I will call upon you. Let's see, Nina Savgir. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much for that presentation. When I, when the references to 2016, I realized that I remember being on the board when that was being discussed, making those changes then. So the question, you put up like the those four designations in terms of verified, silver, gold, platinum. And one of the things that I was wondering about is whether you had considered things like rain garden as part of the plan, so that not only does it absorb a lot of the water that tends to wind up in the roadway and add to flooding and icing and so forth, and would increase the sustainability factors of the plaza.
So yes, one of the areas like I said, there are multiple areas, but one of the specific areas is water, and we do look at different ways to it doesn't draw. So look at different ways to deal with stormwater. So one of the ways we would look at, or at least we can and would always consider, is some sort of green infrastructure. I don't know that we can necessarily. The problem with green, there's not a problem. The issues with green infrastructure a lot of times simply prevent it from happening, and a lot of times some of the biggest issues is what's happening under the ground. But it is something I think that DDC particularly always likes to see considered, at least looked at and examined.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Carl is up next.
Yeah, thank you so much. Can folks hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. So thank you so much for this presentation. It was very cool to see. So I don't know if DDC may be able to answer this question or not, but I'm just curious about, in that design, like in the proposed future state for especially for the Hillel Plaza, I'm interested in terms of what that means for the trash disposal for those establishments that are there. So like, there's the McDonald's, there's the Wendy's, there's these other establishments that open onto Hillel currently, and like you called out, there's that uneven curb right now. So I'm wondering, in the future state, what does that mean for their trash disposal? Does that mean that they're taking it up to Kenilworth, or they're taking it up to Flatbush? I'm not saying that I'm not putting it on DDC to answer that question, but I am curious about, given this proposed future state, what does that mean for those businesses that do have, I guess, entrances or exits that open onto Hillel currently, what that would mean in terms of, their trash disposal. So that's it. But thank you for sharing this. This is cool. That's just a question I have.
So I don't know if Jason wants to talk about it or not. Or
I think that's more a question to Casey.
Yeah, I'll take that question. My name is Casey Grell. I'm from the Public Realm Unit at DOT, working on our plaza projects. Great question. We work with the bid to coordinate with businesses on trash disposal. What's happening now is they take it to either Kenilworth or Flatbush, and we want to make sure we have areas there for that to occur, and that'll happen under the reconstruction as well.
Right,
But
cool.
great
Thank
question.
you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Looks like we have a question from Jonas.
Hi, thank you so much. I just had a general question, which was, how did these locations become priorities for streetscape improvement within the district? Why were these spots chosen?
Okay, probably DOT.
Yeah. So two kind of big factors. One is this location's a plaza. As David mentioned, this was accepted into the DOT Plaza program. We do a test with an interim plaza, and then we pursue capital reconstruction. That's kind of our very typical plaza process. So that's why this location was prioritized in the district. It's one of the few DOT plazas here. We also have one at Beverly Road, which I think is technically outside the district, but somewhat nearby. The other locations are also locations where we did in-house improvements, as was called out. That's with the kind of painted surfaces, the markings and the planters. We then pursue capital funding to build those out permanently. So because those locations had already been identified for in-house improvements, they're then put in for the capital pipeline and funding secured and then prioritized for reconstruction.
Did that
Thank
help
you.
you? Okay.
I think Sean has her hand raised.
Yeah, just because Casey, you caught yourself, but Community District 14 only has one pedestrian plaza, and we are working tirelessly to transfer Newkirk Plaza into the very capable hands of DOT's pedestrian plaza program someday, hopefully someday in the near future.
Thanks, Sean. I don't see any other hands going up on the subject. I'll just add my 2 cents real quick, because I think this was a very, very detailed presentation. I very much appreciate it. I was on both of these streets regularly for about 7 to 8 years of my life when my sister lived by there. And to see the changes over time, but also firming up of some of these proposals, I think is very encouraging, and I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Lisa Derrick, your hand went up. Sorry if I missed you.
Hi, yes, good evening. Thank you for the presentation. I'm very glad to hear that Hello Plaza is being made permanent. It's a great outlet for the community to come together and utilize that space. And recently, I'm not sure how many years ago, maybe 2 years ago, they changed the traffic lights there so that all traffic stops for pedestrians. So that has made it that huge intersection much safer. So I'm glad to see that that's there. I wanted to go back to Campus Road and Avenue H.
Oh,
Somewhere around there. Nostrand
yeah, right here.
and Campus Road.
This is Campus, Emersford, and East 27th.
Campus, East
It's the
27th.
next location, David.
This one?
Yes.
Nostrand H?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see.
This is
Yeah,
at Nostrand and Avenue H.
yeah.
So
Okay.
this is a very wide intersection here, and it seems like you are doing a bump out to shorten the crosswalk for the pedestrians. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, one of the things we're doing, yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I know this is a heavy traffic area for buses. It's a big bus hub here. This is not going to have any impact for them, will it? So you have a lot of buses that sit along Nostrand Avenue between Flatbush and Avenue H, as well as
there'll still be the travel lanes, and there are still the lane where they're parking. I have to believe is the parking lane, so it's still there. Nothing. We're not removing at this. As far as we know, we're not removing any parking from Avenue H
or Nostrand.
Or Nostrand. Yes, ma'am.
And then on the south side of Nostrand Avenue here, which is at the corner of that empty lot there, there's a lot of open space. So you're moving the sidewalk out, which it needs to be.
South,
I'm happy to hear if that's
the
what
south corner here. Yeah. Right here.
Yeah, is that by the college? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So yes, that's I'm glad that that's being bumped out, because that, people typically go and they stand in the street waiting for the light to change. It was a very awkward open space. But I would like to inquire about the curved street that goes onto Campus Road.
The bump out on the top left?
Yes, that's it. Is there anything being done about that curve? It's rather awkward. It's a very tight squeeze for pedestrians on that sidewalk. Cars, even though they're not supposed to, they do park there. And then you have a restaurant who has their garbage bins out there as well. So it makes it an extremely tight area. There's a campus.
This
right
is
at
the
the top of the screen, at the top of your screen, where I think it's where this orange
the bus with the bus
awning is.
with this. Oh, over here on the top left.
Where
Right.
Campus Road, where you curve into Campus Road going towards the college.
Curves into Nostrand Avenue on the top. It's the north edge of Campus Road up there.
Is there
With
any
the
way that sidewalk can bump out a little as well to straighten it out, to give pedestrians more space?
I think that's something we'll have to take back and look at. It's kind of technically outside the limits of this project, but it's something DOT can take back and look at for potential either in-house improvements or we can discuss potentially including it in this project, but it's something we can look at.
And then right on that corner on Nostrand
right.
Avenue and Campus Road, there's a lot of water that builds up there. And Sean may be able to speak to this if you have a history of it. Huge
Thank you
puddle of water that's there often. Sean, do you have any input on that?
Well, hold on. I just want to jump in real quick. So, Lisa, I think they took note of a few of your comments and questions. We're running up on about 3 hours for this meeting. If there's any insight that Sean can provide to the DOT on a particular intersection, we could take it offline and then coordinate from there. But
Okay,
I do
I'll
just want to
share
be
that with
sensitive to
Sean
the
so
time.
she can pass it on.
Thank you.
Thanks, Musa.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right. So, with that said, I want to keep this as close to 8:30 as possible. I know we have one other agenda item that we just want to touch on real quickly. So I want to thank the presenters so far. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us. We really appreciate it. And then we'll move on to the last agenda item. But thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thanks all.
Thank you all.
All right. Sean, I'm going to hand it over to you on the agenda item or on the notice on some of the streets, the slower streets that DOT appears to be implementing.
Yeah, there are some Sammy's Laws streets that are adjacent to schools. And I just wanted to make the announcement because I had had so many different requests about them, and then we'll post them on our website too. But Avenue I between Ocean Avenue and East 21st, that's where the Masoros Bias Yaakov High School is. Avenue K between East 29 and Nostrand, that is what we endearingly call Huddy. Avenue L between East 24, East 27. I know I'm going fast, but we will post it. Gil Hodges School. East 23 between Campus and Glenwood. That's PS 315. Glenwood between East 23, East 23rd and 26, Midwood High School and PS 315 and School of Science and Tech. And then Newkirk Ave between Coney Island Avenue and Argyle Road, as well as Westminster Road between Newkirk Ave and Glenwood Road. Those are the streets that are adjacent to PS 217. Again, we'll post this. These are being speed limit reduced.
Thank you very much, Sean. Appreciate it. All right, given the limited time, I am just going to go to the last agenda item, which is just other business. You could discuss what Sean just presented on, or I will take up to one additional item, just because I don't want us to have a 3-hour meeting. Is there any other business anyone would like to raise? I see a hand. I do not see any hands. Wonderful. If you do have any other business, feel free to reach out to Benjamin and I and the office, the district office, obviously. With that said, I think we can wrap up the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for coming. appreciate everyone taking the time and being as detail oriented as this group always is. It's a strength of this community, and want to wish everyone a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.